What if I told you the reason you're not living the life you dream of has nothing to do with talent, luck, or opportunities, and everything to do with the fact that you keep negotiating with your own laziness? And what if I told you that motivation isn't your missing piece? Discipline is. Most people think they need to feel ready to act, but the people who actually win aren't more motivated. They're simply more disciplined. They've built an unbreakable mindset, capable of moving forward even when everything in them wants to stop. Right now, as you listen to this, someone with less talent and fewer resources is moving ahead of you, not because they're better, but because they're not waiting to feel like it. They've made discipline their foundation, and that changed everything. In the next few minutes, I'm going to prove to you why motivation is a trap, how it silently keeps you stuck, and how building unstoppable discipline will make you more powerful than any temporary feeling ever could. But here's the thing. Once you truly understand this, there's no going back. Your excuses will never sound the same again. This is the exact moment where your transformation can begin, or where it can end forever. Which side of that line you stand on depends entirely on you. The truth is harsh, but liberating. Motivation isn't reliable. It shows up when everything is aligned and disappears when life gets heavy. Self-discipline, on the other hand, doesn't depend on how you feel. It simply acts. It's like that friend who shows up at the gym even when it's raining. When you learn to act without depending on excitement, you open the path to a real-life transformation. Imagine someone who decides to run every morning. In the first few days, they're excited, full of energy, convinced nothing will stop them. Then the cold comes, or the rain, or the warm bed whispering, just 5 more minutes. That's when the difference is born between those who have self-discipline and those who live on fleeting impulses. One acts even without wanting to. The other negotiates and loses. Mental discipline doesn't need permission to work. It operates even when the body is tired, even when the mind creates 1,000 excuses. People with a success mindset understand that emotion is temporary, but decision is firm. They build their routine based on principles, not feelings. That's how you build discipline solid as concrete. Motivation for discipline is like the fuel in a sports car. It accelerates fast, but runs out quickly. Self-discipline, however, is like a strong diesel engine. It runs for long distances. When you commit to acting every day, you create an unstoppable mindset. And it's this silent strength that turns dreams into tangible achievements. Those who rely only on motivation live in emotional ups and downs. One day, they wake up ready to conquer the world. The next, they can't even get out of bed. Those who develop self-control, on the other hand, understand that success doesn't depend on inspiration, but on focus and consistency. That's what separates amateurs from professionals, dreamers from doers. Think about an Olympic athlete. They don't wake up every day wanting to train, but they wake up with personal discipline to keep the promises they made to themselves. Mindset change starts when you decide to act even without wanting to, when emotion no longer dictates your steps. At this point, productivity stops being a goal and becomes a lifestyle. Motivation shouts, discipline whispers. The first depends on circumstances. The second creates circumstances. Those who cultivate daily habits build, brick by brick, the growth mindset that sustains winning habits. Each small action adds up until it forms a mental fortress that's hard to break down. At first, self-discipline seems heavy, almost unfair, but over time, it becomes your shield and your sword. It eliminates excuses and builds character. Every morning you get up even without wanting to. You reinforce the idea that you're in control. That's how personal power is born. Not in moments of inspiration, but in silent battles against laziness. Those who rely only on motivation are always at the mercy of their emotions. Those who practice morning discipline create structure and stability. It's like building a solid bridge instead of paddling a small boat through a storm. Emotions come and go, but a firm routine keeps the direction. That's what separates those who arrive from those who give up halfway. The truth is that motivation for discipline is a great starting point, but will never be enough. The initial energy is useful, but the long journey requires reliable fuel. People with a millionaire mindset understand that consistency is the key to long-term success. That's why they plan and execute even when no one is watching. Self-discipline doesn't feed on applause, but on results. It doesn't need external validation because it knows victory lies in staying firm. Each accomplished day, each goal achieved, builds a silent legacy. And before you know it, your winner's mindset is shaped, ready to face any challenge. If you look at the most successful people in the world, you'll see that none of them depend on being in the mood to act. They've developed mental discipline to operate even when the tide is against them. The secret isn't feeling like it. It's creating success habits that work on autopilot. This is self-development in its purest form. Motivation is like a visitor. It shows up, excites, and leaves. Self-discipline is like a permanent resident. It stays, even when no one else does. It's what ensures you study when you want to rest, work when others stop, and advance when others give up. This creates an unstoppable mindset, forged through daily practice. Many people look for hacks, shortcuts, and magic formulas to change their lives, but ignore the power of simply showing up every day. That consistency, fueled by personal discipline, is what builds great empires. It's not the initial spark that sustains you, but the silent force of continuity. That's personal growth in practice. 15. When you commit to discipline, your life stops being guided by "I feel" and starts being driven by "I do." This simple shift changes everything. Your mind stops negotiating and starts executing. The feeling of power that comes from this is transformational. It's when you realize you can control your mind instead of being controlled by it. This silent power starts with small decisions. Getting up the first time the alarm goes off, studying when there's no test, training even when tired. These choices shape your identity. With each victory over laziness, your mental strength grows. You stop being a hostage to motivation and become the master of your routine. And that's when the game changes. Discipline becomes natural, almost instinctive. Effort stops feeling like a sacrifice and becomes your standard. You no longer chase motivation. It starts chasing you. And when that happens, everything begins to align almost magically, opening the door to the next stage. Stopping negotiations with laziness. One laziness is cunning. It rarely comes dressed as "I don't want to do anything." Most of the time, it disguises itself as "I deserve a rest," "I'll do it later," or "just 5 more minutes." This disguise is dangerous because it looks innocent, but it steals your time and weakens your self-discipline. Every time you agree to this little voice, you give away a part of your progress. Negotiating with laziness is like shaking hands with your own stagnation. At first, it feels harmless, but it silently creates a habit of postponing what needs to be done. Mental discipline starts when you stop these negotiations entirely. You don't need to feel ready. You need to act. And this decision, taken daily, builds an unstoppable mindset. When you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you train your brain to believe that tomorrow is always an option. But tomorrow is a liar. Tomorrow never comes. It's just a polite way of saying, I won't do it now. People with a success mindset understand this and remove negotiation from the equation. They act today, even when it's uncomfortable. Laziness is seductive because it gives you instant relief. Lying on the couch feels good. Scrolling your phone feels easy. But what it doesn't tell you is the cost: regret, frustration, and the weight of unfinished goals. The more you negotiate, the more it grows. The more you act despite it, the weaker it becomes. True self-discipline isn't forged in moments of excitement, but in the quiet decisions when no one is watching. When you get up, work, or study when no one would judge you for skipping. That's when your mental strength grows. Each of these decisions plants seeds of winning habits that shape your future. Imagine a person who always delays their training because they don't feel like it. Over time, the gym becomes an enemy, not because it's bad, but because their mind associates it with failure. Now imagine someone who stops negotiating and simply goes, no matter what. Over time, the gym becomes a natural part of their identity. People with a growth mindset understand that emotions are temporary. Laziness is temporary, but the results of acting or not acting can last for years. That's why they build daily habits that bypass feelings. Instead of asking, do I feel like it? They say, it's time to do it. And that's what changes everything. Negotiation with laziness happens in seconds. It's the moment between the impulse to act and the decision to procrastinate. If you hesitate, laziness wins. If you act, you win. This moment, repeated hundreds of times, defines whether you build a life of achievement or a life of excuses. One of the most powerful discipline habits is removing the space for negotiation. Prepare your clothes the night before. Set your alarm far from the bed. Make your environment ready for action. The less room you give laziness, the less power it has. Structure beats willpower every single time. Laziness loves open spaces, vague plans, undefined hours, undefined goals. Self-discipline thrives on structure, schedules, commitments, clarity. The more precise your plan, the less chance you have to get trapped in the seductive conversation of, I'll do it later. This is why so many people get stuck. They believe discipline depends on feeling inspired. But people with a millionaire mindset don't wait to feel like it. They've already decided. While the majority negotiates, they execute. While others plan endlessly, they're already building their long-term success. You've probably experienced this. I'll rest just a little, and then I'll start. But when you give in, that little turns into an hour, then a day, then regret. Laziness is a master negotiator. It doesn't need to win big battles. It conquers you through small, repeated agreements. Overcoming laziness isn't about fighting it head on. It's about refusing to enter the conversation. If laziness can't bargain, it can't win. This mental clarity is part of building discipline. It's not about having superhuman strength. It's about making the right decision faster than excuses appear. People who build winning habits know that the cost of giving in is much higher than the temporary discomfort of acting. They accept the short-term pain because they see the long-term reward. This is the real mindset of winners, not magical inspiration, but practical, consistent execution. Laziness is an emotion, not a fact. It doesn't have real power unless you give it permission. The less you listen to it, the quieter it gets. The more you act in spite of it, the weaker it becomes. And eventually, your disciplined mindset gets louder than any excuse. This transformation happens little by little. One no to laziness becomes two, then 10, then a way of living. Over time, What once felt difficult becomes your natural response. Personal discipline doesn't mean never feeling lazy again. It means being immune to laziness. And when this immunity grows, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating, stop postponing, stop wasting time. Laziness becomes just another noise in the background, irrelevant to your goals. And that's when your power multiplies. Opening the door to the next step. Building immediate action reflexes. The mind loves to invent excuses when you hesitate. In the first second, the idea to act appears. In the next, the soft voice of resistance begins to speak. By the third, laziness has taken control. It's in this short gap that self-discipline comes in. Immediate action is like flipping a switch. You decide and move before the negotiation begins. The 3-2-1 go rule is simple but powerful. When you feel the impulse to do something important, count down from 3 and act. Don't overthink. Don't allow time for excuses to form. This technique turns motivation into real movement and strengthens your mental discipline. Imagine waking up to the sound of your alarm clock. If you think, you lose. If you get up immediately, you win. This tiny daily decision shapes winning habits. People with a success mindset don't argue with their pillow, they just move. The secret is eliminating the space between intention and action. The human brain is lazy by nature. It always seeks the path of least resistance. But when you create immediate action reflexes, you teach your mind that acting is easier than delaying. Every time you move before the excuse forms, your mental strength grows and your response becomes automatic. Most people don't fail because they lack capacity. They fail because they hesitate too long. They know exactly what needs to be done, but wait for the right feeling. Immediate action destroys this trap. When you act first, motivation for discipline comes after. That's the difference between dreamers and achievers. Here's a simple example. If you want to work out, as soon as the idea arises, put on your workout clothes. Don't think. Don't look at your phone. Just move. These short sequences create daily habits that strengthen an unstoppable mindset. At first it feels forced, but soon your brain learns. Thought equals action. Hesitation weakens self-respect. Every time you promise something to yourself and don't follow through, your mind learns that your word isn't strong. When you act immediately, you build inner trust. Self-discipline is forged through small, firm acts repeated daily until they become part of who you are. Creating reflexes of action doesn't mean ignoring real exhaustion. It means ignoring excuses dressed as logic. It's about distinguishing between, I need to rest, and I just don't feel like it. People with a growth mindset master this distinction and act based on clarity, not impulses. Action generates energy. Hesitation drains it. Have you ever noticed that once you start a task, it gets easier to keep going? That's because inertia is broken. The first step is the hardest and also the most powerful. It's the line between someday and today. If you want to change your life, start by reducing the gap between thought and action. Don't wait for motivation. Don't chase perfection. Don't overplan. Just do it. This apparent simplicity builds a solid mental structure. Over time, self-discipline takes the wheel, and you act almost automatically. Think about a firefighter in front of a burning building. There's no time to think, should I go in? They act because they've trained for it. You can train your mind the same way, not to fight fires, but to eliminate procrastination. That's how an unstoppable mindset is forged. This technique works for everything: studying, working out, getting out of bed, putting down your phone. If the idea shows up, count 3, 2, 1, and move. No inner monologue. Productivity skyrockets when action becomes automatic. Motivation stops being the main fuel and becomes just a bonus. The biggest enemy of progress isn't declared laziness, but silent hesitation. That just one more minute seems harmless, but kills momentum. A mindset shift happens when you decide to act without waiting for the perfect moment. Because, deep down, the perfect moment never arrives. With time, this behavior builds identity. You stop being someone who plans to act and become someone who acts. Every micro action feeds your mental strength, reinforces your success habits, and puts you on a rhythm laziness can't match. You don't need to change the world in one go. You just need to start faster. The speed of your decision directly affects the speed of your results. Acting on the right impulse creates a positive loop. Action generates energy. Energy generates more action. That's how discipline is built. Remember, overthinking is procrastination's best friend. The longer you dwell on something, the more excuses laziness finds to stop you. True self-control is not giving time for this debate to exist. Act first, reason later, and watch your results multiply. Gradually, acting stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling natural. You become the kind of person who moves before they even feel like it. Laziness loses its grip, hesitation dissolves, and confidence grows. This is how an unstoppable mindset is born. And it's here that you start mastering your own thoughts. Every action begins as a thought. If your mind is not disciplined, it becomes the perfect territory for excuses, fears, and procrastination to grow. A weak thought might sound small, but it has the power to shape your reality. Learning to control your mind is learning to build a foundation strong enough to support the life you want. When your thoughts are scattered, your actions are hesitant. When your thoughts are sharp, your behavior follows with strength. People with a growth mindset understand that self-mastery starts inside. They choose which thoughts to feed and which to starve. That's what separates consistent action from endless postponement. It's easy to let phrases like, "I can't," "I'm too tired," or "it's too difficult" take over. But these aren't facts. They're opinions your brain throws at you to protect you from discomfort. Mental discipline is about recognizing these lies and replacing them with stronger commands. I can start. I'll do it anyway. This makes me stronger. Every time you accept a weak thought, you reinforce laziness. Every time you counter it with a firm thought, you strengthen self-discipline. It's a battle fought silently, in your head, dozens of times a day. And each time you win this mental battle, you grow stronger. Think of your mind like a radio with different stations. One plays fear, another plays excuses, another plays courage. You can't stop the signals, but you can choose which station to listen to. Those who develop an unstoppable mindset learn to tune in to the frequency of strength. Here's something powerful. Your brain believes what you say to it repeatedly. If you keep saying, "I'm lazy," it will act accordingly. If you say, "I'm disciplined," it will search for proof of that. That's why self-talk isn't just motivation, it's mental programming. Controlling your thoughts doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means taking charge of the story your mind tells you. When a lazy thought appears, you don't let it grow roots. You recognize it, reframe it, and replace it. Over time, this becomes second nature. Imagine a soldier under pressure. Panic wants to take control, but training speaks louder. The same applies to your daily battles. With repetition, your disciplined voice gets louder than the voice of fear. That's the beginning of true personal power. The mind is naturally lazy. It prefers comfort, not challenge. But the moment you recognize that thoughts aren't commands, everything changes. You become the commander, not the soldier blindly obeying. That's the foundation of real self-discipline. Many people believe discipline is about action, but it starts long before that. It starts in the fraction of a second between "I can't" and "I will." That tiny gap decides whether you grow or stay stuck. And learning to control this space is what creates extraordinary results. Daily habits are built not just on actions, but on how you talk to yourself about those actions. That's why people with a success mindset have firm, clear, commanding inner voices. They don't give laziness a chance to win the argument. Laziness doesn't disappear, but when your inner voice is strong, it loses its power. You stop fearing the mental chatter because you know how to control it. And when you master your thoughts, your actions naturally align with your goals. Here's the truth: you can't control everything in the world, but you can control your thoughts. And that alone is enough to change your trajectory. Because actions born from strong thoughts are unshakable. Think of every thought as a seed. If it's negative and you let it grow, it turns into weeds. If it's strong and you nurture it, it becomes a tree. A mind with disciplined thoughts doesn't need constant motivation because it's already built to resist distractions. With time, your disciplined thoughts create momentum. You no longer waste energy fighting internal battles every morning. You simply act. Self-control becomes natural, and your energy focuses entirely on moving forward. When the mind obeys strength instead of comfort, nothing can stop you. You stop being hostage to your excuses and become the architect of your actions. This is where mental discipline truly lives, in silence, in your thoughts, before the world ever sees your results. And when you master this invisible battlefield, external obstacles lose their power. They can no longer control you because your mind already belongs to you. And it's at this point that repetition begins to shape your identity, leading you to the next stage: the power of repetition. Repetition is the invisible architect of discipline. While motivation sparks the first step, repetition builds the path beneath your feet. Every action repeated becomes easier, smoother, and more automatic. Over time, what once felt like a mountain turns into routine. That's the quiet power behind winning habits. At first, repeating the same disciplined action feels boring or even painful, but that discomfort is the very signal that you're reprogramming your mind. The brain resists new habits, but it eventually submits to consistency. This is why daily habits are stronger than bursts of inspiration. People with a success mindset know that greatness isn't built in moments of adrenaline, but in the silent repetitions when no one is watching. That's where real transformation happens. That's where an unstoppable mindset is forged, brick by brick. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation for that anymore. It's automatic because you've done it for years. Now imagine applying that same automatic power to exercising, working, or studying. That's what self-discipline does. It transforms effort into identity. Repetition removes decision fatigue. You no longer waste time asking, "Should I do this today?" It's already decided. That's why people with personal discipline seem unstoppable, because they've eliminated negotiation from their daily routine. The habit moves before the doubt speaks. Consistency beats intensity every time. It's better to do a little every day than a lot occasionally. When you do something consistently, even small actions accumulate tremendous power over time. That's how long-term success is built, not through heroic bursts, but through quiet constancy. The brain loves patterns. If you train it to expect discipline, it obeys. If you train it to expect excuses, it resists. Repetition is like carving a new path in a forest. The first time, it's hard. The second, it's easier. After a while, it becomes a road. Many people give up too early, not because they can't, but because they expect results before the habit is solid. But repetition takes time. At first, self-discipline feels like carrying a heavy backpack. Then, it becomes a jacket you wear naturally. Every small action repeated, getting up early, exercising, reading, working, strengthens the foundation of your mental discipline. These little bricks eventually form a wall strong enough to protect your goals from impulses, laziness, and external distractions. People with a growth mindset trust the process. They know the magic isn't in doing extraordinary things once, but in doing simple things consistently. The habit starts by carrying you. Then, one day, it starts carrying you. Repetition also builds self-respect. Every time you show up for yourself, you prove that your word matters. And when your word matters to you, self-control becomes natural. You no longer argue with laziness because you've trained yourself to act. Here's the secret most overlook. The habit doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be repeated. 5 push-ups a day can become a full workout. 10 minutes of reading can become an hour. The key isn't intensity, but repetition. Even on the bad days, you show up, especially on the bad days. That's how identity is built. Motivation may abandon you, but self-discipline doesn't. Repetition makes sure you keep walking even when the wind is against you. The more you repeat a disciplined action, the less resistance it creates. It becomes part of who you are. That's why people who train their minds this way seem naturally focused. It's not nature, it's repetition disguised as talent. The habit starts as a conscious effort. Then it becomes subconscious behavior. That's why building success habits isn't about being strong all the time, but about being consistent enough until strength is no longer needed to act. Repetition turns goals into identity. You no longer have to convince yourself, you simply are. And this is the turning point where laziness becomes powerless against you. Once your identity is built, resistance doesn't stand a chance. And it's precisely at this stage, when discipline becomes part of your nature, that your inner voice matters more than ever. Because what you say to yourself determines how far you'll go. And that leads us to the next step: replacing negative self-talk with powerful inner commands. The way you talk to yourself shapes everything. Your inner voice can either be a ruthless enemy or a powerful ally. Negative self-talk is the silent killer of self-discipline. It plants small, sneaky thoughts like, "I'm tired," "This is too hard," or "I can't do this," which slowly paralyze action. Your mind listens carefully to the language you use. If you speak weakness, it obeys weakness. If you speak strength, it obeys strength. People with a success mindset understand that their self-dialogue is the first battlefield they need to win. And when they win there, everything else follows. Self-discipline isn't just about taking action. It's also about controlling your mind before action begins. Replacing negative phrases with powerful commands is like reprogramming the operating system of your brain. "I can't" becomes "I will." "I'm tired" becomes "I'll do it anyway." "It's too hard" becomes "This will make me stronger." When you command your mind with clarity, it obeys. Negative self-talk creates confusion, hesitation, and excuses. Firm commands create direction, certainty, and power. This is how an unstoppable mindset is built, not through endless motivation, but through clarity and authority in your inner voice. The voice of laziness is soft but convincing. It doesn't scream, it whispers, "Take a break. You've done enough. Tomorrow will be better." But when your inner voice becomes stronger than that whisper, laziness loses its grip. That's why mental discipline isn't about being louder, it's about being firmer. Many people underestimate how much their inner language controls their actions. Every time you tell yourself something, your brain takes it as a command. If the command is weak, your actions are weak. If the command is strong, your actions follow suit with power. Imagine an athlete in the middle of exhaustion. Their body is begging to stop, but their inner voice says, one more rep. That single phrase pushes their body beyond what it thought was possible. This is how personal power is forged, through words that move you instead of stopping you. Replacing negative self-talk is not about pretending everything is easy. It's about refusing to let excuses shape your reality. You acknowledge the challenge, but speak strength into it. And little by little, your brain learns to obey strength instead of weakness. This shift is subtle but revolutionary. You go from "I hope I can" to "I will." From "I don't feel like it" to "It doesn't matter how I feel." That's the language of discipline. That's how people with winning habits talk to themselves daily. Every negative thought that goes unchallenged grows roots. But every negative thought that's counted with strength weakens. Over time, your inner garden changes. Excuses stop sprouting so easily, and self-discipline begins to flourish. Words are not just words, they're commands. And when your commands are strong, your actions follow naturally. That's why people who master their self-talk seem unstoppable. They don't give laziness room to negotiate. Negative self-talk will still try to appear, but it no longer controls you. You hear it, recognize it, and override it with a stronger message. "I can't" becomes "watch me." That's how confidence is built from the inside out. Think about the last time you gave yourself an excuse and believed it. What happened? Probably nothing moved forward. Now think about the last time you gave yourself a command and obeyed it. That's the difference between being controlled by your thoughts and controlling them. This practice builds self-respect. Every time your inner voice says something and you act on it, your trust in yourself grows. And when that trust is strong, laziness doesn't stand a chance. You don't argue with your mind anymore. You lead it. Over time, the negative voice becomes background noise, and the disciplined voice takes the front seat. You don't have to scream to yourself. You just have to be clear. Your inner voice becomes like a general giving orders to a well-trained soldier, and your actions follow with precision. The power of mental discipline is born in silence, in what you tell yourself before the world sees any result. Replace doubt with certainty. Replace fear with commands. Replace excuses with movement. That's how you turn your mind into your greatest ally. And when your voice becomes stronger than your excuses, your world changes. This is where most give up, but where the disciplined rise. And to sustain this, you need to create pressure strong enough to silence the whispers of comfort. That's the next step. Comfort is treacherous. It shows up disguised as deserved rest, but in reality, it's a silent thief of dreams. While you relax just a little, opportunities slip through your fingers. Self-discipline is the shield that prevents comfort from taking over your life. But to beat it, you must use a strategic ally: pressure. Pressure creates urgency, and urgency cuts laziness at its root. When you have a deadline, a responsibility, or someone counting on you, there's no room for "I'll do it later." People with a success mindset don't wait to feel inspired. They build circumstances that force them to act. Well-placed pressure turns inaction into movement. Have you noticed how you work better when there's a clear deadline? That's because the mind responds better to structure than to freedom. Without pressure, laziness drives the car. With pressure, action becomes automatic. This is how daily habits are forged and how an unstoppable mindset is strengthened. Pressure doesn't have to come from the outside. You can create it yourself. Set public commitments, clear deadlines, or even rewards and consequences for yourself. When you corner yourself intelligently, you awaken a mental strength you didn't even know you had. It's in that discomfort that real growth happens. Imagine a student who procrastinates until the night before a big exam. Suddenly, they study with incredible focus. Why? Because pressure was applied. Now imagine using that same power daily, without waiting for desperation to arrive. That's how people with a growth mindset turn urgency into routine. Motivation for discipline often appears when pressure is high. When there's no way out, you discover what you're truly capable of. But the real secret is not depending on crises to act. Instead, you create micro pressures every day. Short deadlines, daily goals, consistent challenges that eliminates the comfortable space where procrastination grows. Pressure brings clarity. When everything is wide open, your mind wanders. But when you have a clear goal and a fixed time, focus is born naturally. That clarity fuels productivity and strengthens your ability to act even when you don't feel like it. Focus and consistency thrive in structured environments. Most people don't fail from lack of talent, but from excess comfort. They live in lukewarm routines and call it balance. But personal discipline isn't born in balance. It's born in friction. When you challenge yourself constantly, you build strong mental muscles. Healthy pressure is like weight at the gym. At first, it feels heavy, but it's what builds strength. Without resistance, there's no evolution. Each tight deadline, each responsibility honored, each discomfort faced is a workout for your self-discipline. And eventually, what once felt hard becomes second nature. You can create pressure in many ways. Scheduling fixed times to train, announcing your goals publicly, promising something to someone you respect. These small commitments create a sense of responsibility that defeats laziness. People with a winner's mindset master this art. Comfort, on the other hand, whispers, "You've got time." But time slips away silently. When you establish deadlines and firm goals, you kill that illusion. Mental discipline grows every time you turn desire into personal obligation. And obligation, when well directed, builds extraordinary results. There's a difference between pressure that crushes and pressure that strengthens. The latter is intentional, balanced, and strategic. It's you against your limits, not you against the world. People with a success mindset understand this and use pressure as a tool, not a burden. Look at athletes, entrepreneurs, and artists at the top of their fields. They all have something in common. They create environments where retreat is not an option. They know that without pressure, excellence doesn't emerge. This posture builds success habits that sustain life transformation over the long term. Healthy pressure helps you discover levels of capacity you didn't know existed. It breaks "I can't" and replaces it with "I did." That's where mindset change truly happens. Because once you prove to yourself that you can, laziness loses all its power. If you want to grow, you can't depend on passing motivation. You need to build discipline using triggers that force you to act. Commitments, goals, responsibilities. All of it creates an environment where quitting isn't an option. And that's how real self-control is forged. Over time, pressure stops being a weight and becomes an ally. You learn to live better with it, to grow through it, to use it as fuel. Comfort starts to feel too uncomfortable. And that's when you truly understand that discipline is freedom. Freedom from being ruled by laziness. And at this turning point, everything shifts. You stop running from discomfort and start running toward it. Each tight goal becomes a stepping stone. Each deadline, a chance to grow. Pressure once your enemy, becomes the force that pushes you forward, leading naturally to the next level. Choosing effort over relief. Relief is seductive. It whispers, rest a little, you deserve it, and in the blink of an eye, you postpone one more time. Effort, on the other hand, isn't seductive, it's uncomfortable, but it's in effort that true character is forged. Self-discipline doesn't grow in comfort. It grows when you act even when every part of you wants to stop. When you choose relief, you feel good in the moment, but wake up the next day with regret. When you choose effort, you may feel uncomfortable at first, but sleep with pride. People with a success mindset know that discipline is freedom. Freedom from being slaves to their impulses. The difference between those who achieve extraordinary results and those who don't usually comes down to this silent decision. Effort or relief. Motivation may be the same for both, but personal discipline is what determines their path. One grows, the other stagnates, and stagnation is the quiet enemy of greatness. Choosing effort is like climbing a steep hill. At first, it burns, it pushes you, but when you reach the top, the view makes everything worth it. Those who settle for relief stay at the bottom, watching others rise, often without realizing how much they've fallen behind. Laziness always promises comfort, but charges a high price. Stagnation. Effort charges upfront, but pays with compound interest. Growth. That's a truth people with a growth mindset understand deeply. They don't run from effort. They run toward it because they know that's where transformation happens. Think of an athlete. They train when they want to, and especially when they don't. They understand that motivation is temporary, but self-discipline is non-negotiable. Every drop of sweat is an investment in their future. Today's effort becomes tomorrow's medal, and that applies to every area of life. Relief creates a vicious cycle. You delay, you feel guilty, you feel weak, you delay again. Effort creates a virtuous one. You act, you feel proud, you grow, you act more. This is the difference between being trapped by laziness and living with an unstoppable mindset. Effort teaches you more about yourself than any book ever could. It shows you your limits and, more importantly, how to surpass them. Every time you act in discomfort, your mental strength expands and your confidence multiplies. Relief, in contrast, feeds hesitation and fear. A simple example: when the alarm rings in the morning, choosing effort means getting up. Choosing relief means pressing snooze and starting your day behind. That single choice, repeated daily, shapes winning habits or habits of escape. Micro decisions create macro results. Effort is also a reminder that you're alive, growing, evolving, becoming sharper. Prolonged comfort dulls the mind, numbs ambition. People with a winner's mindset prefer the sting of growth to the anesthesia of stagnation. They know the harder path often leads to the richest rewards. Choosing effort doesn't mean living in suffering. It means understanding that discomfort is part of the growth process. Like a workout, it's heavy at first, but builds strength over time. What was once hard becomes your new normal. Your mental discipline expands. Relief is short-term thinking. Effort is long-term vision. One lives for now. The other builds the future. That's why those who build discipline don't live for immediate feelings. They live for purpose. And purpose doesn't feed on excuses. It feeds on action. When you choose effort, you honor yourself. You're telling yourself, I'm stronger than my laziness. This creates a powerful bond with your identity. And a strong identity sustains success habits, productivity, and results that compound over time. The mind always seeks the easiest route, but you decide whether to follow or lead it. Self-control is born from this daily decision. Rise or give in, act or delay, grow or stay the same. Every choice is a silent vote for the future you want. Effort gives you something relief never will. Self-respect. When you keep your own word, you feel real pride. That pride fuels more self-discipline. Relief robs you of that feeling and leaves a void where confidence should be. This battle between effort and relief will never fully disappear, but over time, you'll win more often. You'll act before you think. You'll associate difficulty with growth, not pain. This is how an unstoppable mindset is born, not in ease, but in friction. And one day, effort stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like fuel. You crave the challenge. You stop running from difficulty and start seeking it out, because that's where your best self is forged. And that's when you gain something priceless: the power to resist impulses with long-term vision. Impulses are tricky. They shout loudly, demand immediate attention, and make you believe they're urgent. But most of the time, they're just shortcuts to regret. Those who develop self-discipline learn to hear impulses without obeying them. Real strength lies in choosing what will matter months or years from now, not what feels good for the next 5 minutes. An impulsive mind seeks instant pleasure. A disciplined mind seeks lasting meaning. While one indulges in temporary sweetness, the other plants seeds that will feed them in the future. That's the dividing line between those who build winning habits and those who stay trapped in the cycle of short-term rewards. Fighting impulses is training your strongest muscle, self-control, and it's not born overnight. It's built through practice, repetition, and purpose. People with a success mindset understand that every choice has a cost. The price of instant pleasure is often delayed progress. Think of the impulse to delay an important task. It seems harmless at first, but giving in once opens the door to giving in again and again. That's how procrastination grows. On the other hand, resisting an impulse strengthens your mental discipline and reinforces your identity as someone in control. Long-term vision is like a lighthouse. When you keep it in sight, even the strongest temptation loses power. Discipline of the mind rests on this clarity, knowing exactly where you're going and why you're acting. When the direction is clear, impulses become too small to steer you off course. Have you ever noticed how impulsive decisions often come with regret? Eating what you shouldn't, delaying what matters, spending money carelessly, all feel good in the moment, but leave a sting after. Disciplined decisions, in contrast, bring discomfort first, but lasting pride after. People with an unstoppable mindset use a simple question to break impulsive patterns. Does this bring me closer to or further from my goal? That single question exposes the truth behind the impulse. And in most cases, the answer is enough to say no. Impulses are like waves, intense but short-lived. If you can resist them for a few minutes, they lose strength. In that tiny window, self-discipline shines. Training your mind to wait before acting is how you take the wheel of your own life. Clarity of vision acts as armor. When you know what you're building, whether it's your health, your business, or your freedom, no random impulse can shake you. Growth mindset lets you look beyond the now and focus on the reward waiting ahead. The urge to give up is always strongest in the short term, but the satisfaction of staying on course is always stronger in the long term. When you feel like quitting, picture where you want to be a year from now. Visualize the pain of lost time versus the pride of consistency. For example, skipping one workout might feel good today, but one day missed becomes 3, then a week, then the habit fades. When the impulse to skip arises, imagine how strong, healthy, and proud your future self will feel if you stay consistent. That vision kills the impulse at the root. Impulses won't disappear completely, but they lose their power when faced with purpose. Personal power is built when you choose what matters over what's easy. That's true freedom, not being controlled by feelings that vanish minutes later. A lazy mind wants quick rewards. A disciplined mind wants real growth. This difference defines destinies. People who live by impulses get random results. People who live by vision build empires. Real productivity comes from this consistency. Mindset change isn't about eliminating impulses. It's about learning to answer them intelligently. When you feel like procrastinating, breathe, pause, and choose consciously. That gap between feeling and acting is where self-discipline lives. The more you practice, the stronger you become. One resisted impulse is already a victory. 10 resisted impulses form a new identity. Over time, the battle fades because your long-term vision speaks louder than any passing desire. Fighting impulses is protecting your future. Each disciplined decision is a brick in the foundation of your winner's mindset. Each resisted impulse is a silent victory that, over time, changes the entire direction of your life. Eventually, impulses will still come, but they'll sound like background noise. They won't control you anymore. Your vision will. Laziness, doubt, and anxiety won't disappear, but they won't lead the way either. This is where real focus is born. And with that focus, your energy can finally be spent on what truly matters. Not every action leads to progress. Many people live in a constant state of busyness, mistaking movement for achievement. But true self-discipline is about directing your energy toward what truly matters. When you learn to say no to distractions, you give power to the actions that actually move your life forward. Distraction is seductive because it feels productive. Answering endless messages, scrolling, multitasking, it all gives the illusion of progress without any real result. People with a success mindset understand that focus and consistency are weapons. They don't chase everything. They protect their attention like a treasure. Clarity is power. When your goals are clear, every task has a weight. Either it gets you closer or pushes you away. Self-discipline allows you to eliminate the noise and act with precision. It's not about doing more, but doing what truly counts. That's the foundation of real productivity. Imagine your energy as sunlight. When it's spread out, it warms. When concentrated through a magnifying glass, it burns. That's the difference between scattered efforts and focused discipline. People with a growth mindset know how to channel their energy with purpose. To focus on what matters, you need to set priorities. Not everything deserves your time. Learning to say no to distractions is a superpower. It's uncomfortable at first, but it frees you to build winning habits in the areas that will actually transform your life. One practical way to achieve this is to set non-negotiable blocks of time. These are moments when your attention belongs only to your most important goals. No messages, no scrolling, no negotiations. Over time, this creates a powerful sense of control over your days. Mental discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to work hard. It's about working smart. It's about identifying where your efforts create the highest return. That's how personal power grows, not in random actions, but in aligned ones. Every disciplined person knows this truth deeply. Busyness without direction leads to exhaustion without progress. That's why so many people feel tired but unfulfilled. They work hard, but not strategically. Mindset change means replacing frantic activity with intentional action. Less noise, more impact. Think of someone training for a marathon. They don't run aimlessly. They follow a plan. That's how they reach the finish line. The same goes for your goals. If you want to build success habits, your energy needs direction, not just effort. Discipline gives you that direction. When you remove distractions, your results multiply. The energy you used to waste gets funneled into what matters most, and that creates acceleration, the kind of acceleration that changes everything over time. Focus is also protection. Protection against laziness disguised as multitasking, against opportunities that aren't really opportunities, against the trap of doing everything and accomplishing nothing. Saying no is sometimes the most disciplined action you can take. People with a winner's mindset don't have more hours in the day. They simply use their hours better. They build systems, routines, and mental filters that protect their energy from what doesn't serve their vision. And that's why they grow while others feel stuck. Your mind will always try to pull you toward comfort and distraction. That's its nature. But self-discipline is what keeps your hands on the steering wheel. It's what turns scattered effort into directed power. And directed power builds empires. Remember, every yes to something meaningless is a no to something that matters. That's why being selective isn't selfish, it's strategic. You're not rejecting people or opportunities. You're protecting your long-term vision. Over time, focused energy builds momentum. Each small, precise action compounds. This is where results begin to accelerate. Laziness doesn't disappear, but it no longer runs the show. You decide where your attention goes. When you master this skill, distractions lose their shine. What once pulled you off course now barely catches your eye. You operate with quiet intensity, moving forward with purpose. This is the final stage of mental discipline, a life guided by focus, not impulses. And from here, your journey doesn't end, it expands. Because with your mind sharpened, your focus clear, and your discipline solid, the only thing left is to keep applying everything you've learned. That's where transformation becomes a way of life. Now that you've reached this point, be honest with yourself. How many times have you let a passing impulse steal your progress? How many times has laziness won and you said, I'll start tomorrow? The truth is tomorrow builds nothing. People who change their lives do it today, with self-discipline and non-negotiable action. Throughout this audiobook, you've learned that motivation is unstable, but mental discipline is solid. You've learned to stop negotiating with laziness, act fast, control your thoughts, and build winning habits that turn goals into reality. But knowing is not enough. Now is the time to act. So, what will your choice be from now on? Will you stay stuck in the comfort that leads nowhere? Or will you finally build the success mindset that shapes destinies? The decision is yours, and it begins with your next step, not next month. Remember, every time you act, you strengthen your mental power. Every small victory against procrastination is a brick in the castle of your life transformation. And little by little, you stop fighting against discipline and start living with it as your greatest ally. If you truly want to go further, listening isn't enough. You must apply. Start tomorrow? No. Start now. Don't wait for motivation to knock. Build your own success habits. No one will do this for you, but you can and must do it for yourself. And if this message spoke to you, if it woke something up inside you, then apply what you've learned and keep growing. Subscribe, stay connected, and keep absorbing everything that will strengthen your unstoppable mindset. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be disciplined. You need to take the next step. You need to take control of your mind and build the strongest version of yourself. Because in the end, discipline is freedom. Freedom to live the life you choose. not the one your impulses choose for you.